Welcome to the place inside. I am your host, Laurence Galian. I am also a new member of MUFON, and from what I'm told, the only MUFON member in Cuernavaca, Mexico. This show, it's time to be brutally honest. And this is ironic because what I'm about to say has to do with brutal honesty. We've got some very intense ideas to share with you in this episode. Okay, here is the first thing that I want to share with you. The American public is scared to death to speak their minds. The American public is frightened to death of their government. When people ask why people don't speak up, be brutally honest, and protest against all the numerous losses of our civil rights, the answer is not because they are apathetic. I know I fell victim for a while to the concept promulgated by men like David Icke that the American public are sheeple. They aren't sheeple. They are scared to death of the United States shadow government. People are living on edge. A lot of people can't even be inside their own bodies anymore. One symptom of this is if you have experienced problems being able to sit down and read a book. Maybe you used to read a lot of books, but lately you just can't seem to sit yourself down and finish a book. Some people are finding they can't even sit through a whole movie, and unfortunately end up sitting in front of the television and flipping through the channels all night. It is very important where people are residing in terms to getting through into the next world. A lot of lives are going to be lost in water. Indigenous Americans have had sightings of holy people. They call them deities. And this information cannot be put through the wires. Essentially, the information from these deities are very specific warnings to give to the people about this time we are in and the time that is coming. For example, corn is not just for eating, but it can also be used for prayer. Corn pollen, if collected properly, is used by the Cherokee for protection and prayer. The indigenous native people to the land now called the United States have an intimate relationship with the star ancestors. They are also called the Mi'kmaq. The Hopi is the oldest continuing civilization on this planet today. We are living, so to speak, on the porch. There is life inside the planet. We know about the hollow earth, and our American indigenous ancestors have known about it for a very long time. We have emerged from inside the planet through 4 worlds. Moreover, we've destroyed each of these worlds. What has awoken them now is Fukushima. So many people have already died on the west coast of the United States due to Fukushima. You would be amazed. The star ancestors are the culture bearers for humanity. Like back in ancient Egypt, Isis and Osiris brought mathematics, music, architecture, agriculture, crafts, etc. to humanity. You can't invade another planet as you invaded Iraq. We can't keep going on exploding things on the moon as we did, but we will be stopped because they are inhabited. Ingo Swann said that we didn't return to the moon because we encountered pyramids and beings on the moon. During one of the first moon orbits to the dark side of the moon, one of the astronauts said, as they were returning back into communication, and they said this in code, they said the sentence, "There is a Santa Claus," which was another way of saying that, yes, there is extraterrestrial life on the moon. Have you ever wondered why NASA has not released a full-length motion picture about our moon missions? We brought up with us the most advanced and sophisticated movie and still photograph cameras. NASA could make a spectacular movie about the most important and heroic moment in human history, the journey of humanity to the moon. Yet what do we see? We see NASA movies about the space shuttle, about the International Space Station, but no full-length motion pictures about the moon landings. Now, you know my father helped build numerous lunar modules. He was the head of quality control for the night crew at Grumman Aerospace. I saw the lunar modules. I know they exist. He took me into the Grumman building in which they were being built. However, what do we see? We see the same old film clips of the moon landing over and over again. We see the planting of the flag and them jumping around in the low gravity. We see a little clip of their little vehicle rover they drove around in. And we see the top half of the lunar module blasting off from the bottom half. And that's it. Most of the film is very grainy. A lot of it is in black and white. Yet we brought the most sophisticated color film motion picture cameras. What doesn't NASA want us to see? NASA has failed the people of the United States. NASA has failed humanity. Hasselblad was NASA's moon camera. If you know anything about cameras, you know Hasselblad is the finest name in camera manufacturers. They had a magazine for loading 70mm film in open spool. 70mm film. The photographs and the movies are being hid from us, and they just keep replaying the same old shit. Cattle mutilations are not done by the aliens. This is done by the inner workings of the U.S. government. The various plasma rays are being tested on the cattle. Also, cow blood. If you know this, if only used for 24 hours, can be used for purposes of transfusion with humans. By only a few actions like Waco, the Twin Towers, and so forth. In other words, without the need for an out-and-out war, the United States government has brought the public to its knees. And that's why I say the people of the United States are scared to death of their government. Yes, there are armed groups, but as I've warned you over and over again in these podcasts and videocasts, arming yourself is a waste of time. The U.S. government's armed services are experts at fighting with guns. You're only a fool to think that by creating a militia, you can change the course of what's happening in the United States. The only way to create change is through what is called by a huge variety of names, but sincerely all amount to the same thing. I am talking about ESP, esotericism, the occult, self-activation, self-actualization, spiritual mind treatments, the secret, yoga, siddhi power, development of the Sufi Lataf, and through making connection with the intergalactic extraterrestrial community. So yes, there's hope. There's a lot of hope. In fact, the greatest weapon of the United States government is that they are filling the population with fear and despair, filling them with a sense that there is no hope. That's a joke, truly, because there's an immense amount of hope. However, you have to get yourself in gear. Listen to past shows of The Place Inside. There's a vast wealth of information for you there. Not just a lot of talk about how bad things are, but just the opposite. Lots of practical, step-by-step instructions on how to empower yourself. At first I figured it was best to approve comments first for the podcast so that I could delete and prevent those hate comments directed toward people of various belief systems. After thinking about it, there are so many idiots who troll YouTube just to post insulting comments. I see no point in having comments. You have my email address. I've made no point in hiding myself from you, and I welcome your emails if you want advice or suggestions. I'm not running a social thing like a chat, so I see no practical good in having comments. I only see comments as an opportunity for the government, for the shadow government, the black ops programs, to post confusing comments expertly designed to wage psychological warfare on those who are reading the comments. They want to attack my work, and the way they do it is through expertly crafted comments. Don't be naive. What may seem to be a stupid comment written by a fool, if examined carefully, will reveal itself to be a kind of psychological Trojan horse. We've been experiencing torrid heat across the nation, with over 4,500 record highs and still counting. Violent and severe storms are striking the Northeast and the Great Lakes. Anyone who mocked those people who several years ago predicted major climate changes now realize that those people were right. No, not all of them got the reasons for the extreme weather correct, but facts are facts. And if anyone says that we have not been having extreme weather in the United States just during the last year, then he or she is a fool. Last week, I saw my third UFO, or craft. As I mentioned, I have recently joined MUFON, and I am in the process of becoming a MUFON field investigator. Last week when I saw the UFO, it was a dark and rainy night. Over my apartment, here in Cuernavaca, a very large UFO, about the size of a 747, slowly flew over. it had so many lights on it. This seems to be an extremely recent trend. In other words, UFOs with a large number of lights. The UFO was vaguely in the shape of a flying wing. There was no sound, and it flew very slowly toward the mountains that surround my city of Cuernavaca, Mexico. And this is located in the state of Morelos. As the UFO reached the mountainous area, it started to explore the area. The UFO flew back and forth for a very long time, and on some occasions it completely flicked out of vision and then reappeared a short distance away from where it had disappeared. I have no idea why it was doing this. There were no other aircraft in the area, and there is no commercial jet path that passes over my apartment and goes to the mountains. There does appear to be a military path that passes over my apartment, but this UFO was no military craft that the public is aware of. Also, bear in mind that this took place in Mexico, and if it were a military experimental vehicle, it would in all likelihood be a Mexican Air Force craft. Cheers to the Mexican Air Force for releasing the spectacular night vision video of UFOs flying through the night sky when the Mexican Air Force was out patrolling planes bringing illegal drugs into Mexico. The area where I saw the UFO when it was exploring the mountains was roughly near the active volcano Popocatépetl, or as known here as simply El Popo. I cannot say that the UFOs were flying over El Popo, but El Popo does attract many UFOs, and just recently it attracted a huge mother ship. There is nothing to my knowledge of interest in the area where the UFO that I saw last week was exploring, but obviously they knew of something going on. Remember, here in Cuernavaca, I'm in the land of the ancient Olmec people. In fact, this is not just part of their land, but also the very heart of the Olmec civilization. It was later that the Mayans lived here. Also, you should know that I was born in Manhattan, but I grew up on Long Island. Anyone who has ever done cursory investigation about Long Island knows that there are a huge number of civilian and military airports on Long Island, as well as missile silos and Grumman Aerospace airports. They have two, one in Nassau County and the other one in Suffolk County. I spent approximately 48 years on Long Island, and during that time I saw just about every kind of plane in existence. I never saw any plane with so many lights, and brilliant lights at that, as I saw on the craft that flew over my apartment last week. And certainly it would make logical sense that if this were some secretive governmental craft, one would not advertise it like a billboard with a huge amount of brilliant lights. However, the extraterrestrials are not fools. They know what the governments of the world are divulging and what they are concealing. So, Many alien races are now accustoming the human race to their presence by large displays of craft, such as flew over here in Mexico City a couple of years ago. As I've said many times, just like there are many kinds of humans on Earth, there are even more kinds of aliens in the universe. However, many aliens are now so fed up with the United States government and other governments that they are now beginning to reveal themselves in a casual and friendly way to average citizens. All sorts of reports are coming in of just plain old folks having simple encounters with UFOs and extraterrestrials. Nothing frightening, nothing shocking, no abductions, just a basic and simple encounter. Often the people are told that the craft will return in a year's time. Now, the concept of a being returning in a year and a day is a very sacred and ancient Celtic concept, and you might want to review Michael Tazarian's work regarding the ancient Celts and the origins of civilization. UFOs are largely a topic of humor on network television and on news broadcast, and those who admit to seeing UFOs are ruthlessly ridiculed. I used to think that the government launched a campaign to ridicule those who have seen UFOs because of the subject of free energy. I thought that the government believed that our space brothers and sisters would bring us some new machine or technology that would give us clean and free energy. However, my investigations have led me to discover that these machines have already been invented with extraterrestrials over 75 years ago. Now worse, the inventors have had their equipment confiscated, they have been thrown in jail, the inventors have been beaten, threatened, intimidated, and in some cases, killed. Can we relieve human suffering? It all comes down to, can you stay warm? Can you have access to clean water? Can you reach a doctor when necessary? Most people on Earth do not even have access to toilets. So, who's benefiting from all this great research that has proven the reality of free energy? Well, follow the money. The quote-unquote Green Revolution from the 1960s and 1970s, which many of us remember, made use of a huge amount of petroleum products. Oil corporations have enough money to threaten anyone that threatens their monopoly. The Rockefellers control our food. We all thought the Green Revolution was a great idea. What we didn't know was that Rockefeller was behind the Green Revolution. In fact, in 1870, Rockefeller started his oil empire, Standard Oil, and became the first billionaire in the United States. The Rockefellers control our food too. The quote-unquote Green Revolution used poor farming methods, using oil-based herbicides, fertilizers, and pesticides. Small family farms have all but disappeared. Toxic farm chemicals have polluted the farm workers, the water, the land, and endangered our water supply. Taxpayers paid billions in subsidies to giant agribusiness corporations. Biodiversity is destroyed. These companies declared seed, believe it or not, to be private property. These huge corporations took farmers to court in order to create sterile seed. As of 2010, approximately 1 in 7 people in the world didn't have enough food to eat. We are being colonized, not by Martians, but by money-greedy, banking families that have taken control. We can pull energy from the quantum flux field. Every cubic centimeter of space in the room you are in now has enough energy to run the earth for the entire day. This is the end of the international petrodollar system. If each village can have a small machine that draws energy from the quantum flux field, then we don't need the Rockefellers anymore. Well, the Rockefellers have made sure that they are protecting their money. The Rockefellers created what is called the, quote, National Educational Foundation to create an obedient and docile workforce. 12 years of grammar, middle, and high school designed to create a hypnotic response. The average doctor spends only about 2.5 hours studying nutrition in all the many years and innumerable hours he or she spends on becoming a doctor. And even worse, the so-called, quote-unquote, nutritional materials they use are published by Big Pharma, the National Dairy Council, the National Sugar Council, and the whole medical establishment. Ever listen to the people who are called nutritionists? What they have to say has nothing to do with those people who are true experts in nutrition. I could read a 70-page booklet and know as much as these nutritionists know. Guess who's building all the shiny new medical schools in the United States? Big Pharma, of course. Would they dare to repress medical cures to advance their profits? Doctors all over the United States are curing cancer. A doctor using sound healing in the form of radio waves proved beyond any doubt that he could cure cancer. The doctor's name was Dr. Royal Rife. His technique, called, quote, coordinative resonance, unquote, destroyed tumors and viruses. In the 1920s, in clinical trials, Rife's treatment was tested on 16 cancer patients. Within 3 months, he cured all the patients. Was his discovery hailed the next day in the New York Times? Was he made a national hero? No. This is what happened. His labs were burned to the ground. He was suppressed and his name removed from medical books. He was made to disappear. He was shut down. Big Pharma are murderers. They all belong in a penitentiary. Now, people who see UFOs are subjected to ridicule. And so too are doctors who cure people from cancer. They're called quacks. An elite group of people controls every aspect of our lives by controlling the world of finance. Many liken this to a big pyramid. At the bottom are common, average workers like you and me. Next come the politicians who tax us almost into poverty. Who comes above the politicians? Corporations control the politicians. But then who controls the corporations? Cheap money from the banks. The corporations get their loans at special rates from the banks. Think that a bank is going to give you a special rate so you can buy that car you so desperately need to get to work, or the house and food to care for your family? No way. Only if you are a corporation do you get these special rates. Finally, the moneyed elite control the corporations. Now, several names have been suggested for these moneyed elite: the British royal family, or the Bank of England, the Vatican, the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, and the IMF. These people make fictional money on their computer screens that has not and will never exist. Banks have 9 times as much money loaned out as they actually have in their reserve in their vaults. This is called fractional reserve lending. If you deposit $10,000, reserves 10% and loans out the rest of your money. Now, in the religion of Islam, usury is forbidden by God. Doesn't this make more sense? Our dignity has been lost. We are now a bunch of serfs, debt slaves, to a ruling class of a financial elite. The elite have rigged the system. Therefore, how come if you or I make money, we get arrested for counterfeiting? But if the government does it, it is called increasing the money supply. It's the exact same crime. These bastards belong walking the halls of the state pen and not the halls of banking. The Federal Reserve is not part of your government. It prints as much money as it wants. It is not part of our government. It was created on Jekyll Island by a secret group of wealthy men who gathered there in 1910. The Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Morgans, and other bankers. They are really banking cartels in collusion with the politicians. Now, in 1913, when the Federal Reserve was actually built, very interestingly, so too was built the Internal Revenue Service. How convenient. They created a bunch of thugs to protect their counterfeited money scheme. If you look in the telephone book in Washington, D.C., in the blue pages of the government organizations, you will not find the Federal Reserve. You will find it in the white pages next to Federal Express. Are you so certain you want to keep your money, your hard-earned retirement money, in United States banks and other financial institutions? Would it be better to buy land in another country? Land that you can build your own house on? Land you can truly own? I don't know about you, but I know I lost over 65% of my hard-earned pension in the last 2 financial collapses. 65%. Can you imagine waking up one morning and over half your money is gone? You don't have to imagine it. I suppose and know most of you watching and listening to this experienced exactly what I did, especially those around my age who were hoping and planning for a dignified retirement. Now, Pope Ratzinger and his predecessor have silenced and expelled most of the greatest theologians in the Catholic Church. Over 103 theologians have been quieted. Opus Dei, the ultra-conservative arm of the Roman Catholic Church, praised Hitler. When Ratzinger was a cardinal, he allowed a known pedophile priest to practice his evil crimes for almost a decade, and then he was forced to do something because he became the Pope. There is a distinction between the mind and the brain. The brain is the interface that the mind uses. The brain's hardware is limited to what is inside your scalp, and its electromagnetic waves only extend a small distance from your skull. If you separate electrons that have interacted at some point and then separate them to even the point that one is at one end of the universe and the other electron is at the other end of the universe, then if something happens to one of the electrons, then the same effect happens instantaneously. Not the speed of light, not very fast, instantaneously. Is ESP evidence that there is a further thing in the universe? In other words, that ESP is scientific proof that consciousness exists? There appears to be structures in the brain that can convert the non-local or quantum entangled information from the mind to an electromagnetic electrochemical signal that can cause my hands to play a melody on the piano, or for a writer to write words on a paper, or a painter to paint colors on a canvas. Now, it might be possible to entangle groups of quantum particles, which are called, quote, constellations of quanta, unquote, with constellations of quanta elsewhere, and thereby create massive entanglements. This could explain how ESP, the sending of information instantaneously over immense distances, and remote viewing could function. It has been suggested by David Bohm that everything has been entangled since the time before the Big Bang. This past week we had some fairly decent proof that the God particle, the Higgs boson, exists. Now, the Higgs is an energy field. There had to be an energy field to have kept together things long enough for mass to accrete. Possibly also the Higgs energy field can carry or transfer information. There is a doctrine called physicalism, which rules science nowadays. Everything is physical or a direct result of what is physical. It is essentially a doctrine or creed because it tags on to its definition of matter, the phrase, and that's all there is. Physicalism is based on the conviction that the human being is a thing, that his or her values are the values of things, and that his or her goals are the goals of things. Now, ESP does not violate physics. It violates physicalism. ESP is evidence of something beyond the physical. We call this the quote-unquote field theory of the human being, or the quote-unquote field of being theory of the human being. That's why scientists have not liked Velikovsky, because he talked about the Bible and spirituality. Scientists do not want to deal with anything that has to do with what is beyond the physical world as they currently perceive it. So if you mention the Bible, the Qur'an, Buddhism, the Hindus and the Hindu Vedas, they don't want to hear it. Basically, the scientists want a cold, quote, the human being is a thing, unquote, lifeless universe. The essence of the human being is first our consciousness, and not merely our bodies. Our bodies are precious. But if we were just bodies, why should machines have any rights? It's perfectly okay to do what you want with a machine, but we are not machines. Do you know that Einstein and Velikovsky were friends? Yes, they often took long walks together. One of Velikovsky's conclusions was that electromagnetism should play a great role in our solar system, and he predicted that there should be huge radio emissions from the planet Jupiter. Well, sure enough, eventually the scientists discovered radio emissions coming from Jupiter. At this point, Einstein realized that he could publicly come out and show his support for his friend, and Einstein ordered examinations of the radio waves coming from Jupiter in the name of Velikovsky. Alternately, one could say that ESP is part of the physical world that has not yet been discovered. Go into any biopsy lab and examine all the organs and fluids, the bones, etc. of the human body. Are you going to find a human being on the biopsy table? You're going to find a lot of blood and guts. But you're not going to find someone to talk about the weather with you, let alone compose a symphony or write a novel. Just like if you were an alien and came across the Mars rover, you see it moving around in seemingly intelligent ways. You assume naturally that it is sentient, and if you are a particularly nasty alien, you disassemble the Mars rover to determine how it is sentient. And as you take it apart, you find all sorts of computer chips, gyros, wires, radio equipment, and so forth. Since you've already concluded because of its behavior that it was sentient, you assume that there is some kind of special quality that these transistors, computer chips, and so forth have that produce consciousness. Therefore, I want to start doing interviews and start producing some kind of basic internet radio show. I know that we have listeners who have written to me, who have given me tips over the months. If there is someone out there who is willing to help me to get started, basically, I am starting from square one and really am operating on a shoestring budget. Nevertheless, it seems like it is now time to start interviewing people in the place inside. Please, those of you with internet radio experience, please write to me at drmljg@earthlink.net and let me know how we can get the place inside up and running as an internet radio show. Just bear in mind that we are operating from a very basic financial basis. We can build up our ability to do improved things, but I am being guided to reach out to other writers, thinkers, psychonauts, abductees, masters of human actualization, psychotronics experts, and so forth, and interview them on this show, The Place Inside. So please contact us. I know there's a magazine out there in which people who have written books and or have had amazing experiences and who wish to be interviewed, and I'm giving away radio secrets here, give their information that tells you how to contact them. If you know the name of this magazine and how I can obtain a copy of it, please turn me on to it. If you believe in what I am doing in The Place Inside, if you enjoy listening to the sorts of subjects I discuss in The Place Inside, and you have knowledge about the internet radio business, please contact me. In addition, I may be able to broadcast live from the Mayan capital in the Yucatan this coming December. I have been told that the entire month of December is going to be an international rainbow festival at another great Mayan temple in Palenque that is relatively near where I live. Maybe we could set up a daily radio show or a radio station at the Rainbow Festival and send my reports directly to you in the United States and all over the world. Also, Greg Braden will be coming into Palenque during December. I have no idea how they are all going to fit into the same space, but I have been to Palenque and it is definitely spacious. I just don't know if it will be able to handle the tens of thousands to maybe hundreds of thousands of people that are going to show up for the Mayan winter solstice on December 21st, 2012. All right, contact me. Great Spirit is woman. She is the right hand of Creator. She will help lead us out of our insanity. We pay a heavy price from the heresy of the patriarchy. The only thing the United States exports is war. President Eisenhower said when he left office in 1961, quote, "Beware of the military-industrial complex because it can become a threat to our security, our way of life, and our democratic institutions," unquote. And he was a 5-star general and a conservative Republican. War and dangerous pharmaceuticals are the main sources of income of corporate United States. We are not accepting the Creator's plan. We are not following what the great prophets of God and the wisdom teachers have taught us. Irving Schrödinger, the father of quantum mechanics, said, quote, "The total number of minds in the universe is one. And in fact, consciousness is a singularity phasing in all beings," unquote. This is the consciousness of the One, spoken of in Sufism, in Buddhism, esoteric Christianity, and by all the wisdom teachers. Let's take the place inside to a new level. Let's bring in live guests that we can interview and broadcast as an internet radio show. If you are willing to come forward privately or publicly and help me explore the world of human spiritual potential to free human beings from fear, to help human beings flower into their full actualization, their full potential. Specifically, if you are willing to help sponsor our work, starting up a new internet radio show so that we can accomplish all this on a higher professional level, please contact me now. We can contact the visitors, as I have described in previous podcasts. The truth of the extraterrestrial technology is so interesting. They interface directly with coherent thought. Like we have coherent light in a laser, they have technologies that interface with thought, with conscious mind, with awareness that is coherent. They can pick up on a directed thought. They can pick up on directed musical tones. Do you think that scene from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when they played those 5 tones to the mothership and the extraterrestrials answered back, was just some screenwriter's imagination? UFOs are known to respond to notes sung or played by human beings. They are known to respond to the Hindu sacred word Om, intoned by groups of people. The key here is intention, focus, and coherence. As I mentioned last time, the great music healer Jonathan Goldman has said that he never sells a CD, no matter how beautiful sounding outwardly, if he was not in the frequency of healing and love when he recorded that music. The ETs respond to coherent love and thought. Go way back in our podcast, and you will hear me speak about the Institute of Heart Math. This institute proved that the entire human race responded in a huge wave of compassion on 9/11 through readouts on 2 geosynchronous satellites that are in stationary orbit around the Earth. The human mind is very powerful, and a group of people working together can manifest amazing things with regard to contact and communication with extraterrestrials. Let's do that here on The Place Inside. We are doing this work, and if you go back to previous podcasts, you can read about some of what we have done in this regard. If you want to be part of this exciting adventure, get on board now. Help us to arrange directed thought adventures and retreats in which we make contact. We are ready to take this to the next level. Will you help us? That ends our transmission for tonight. We will be in contact soon.